This is the first presentation for the fall 2016 season of the Medical History Interest Group, MHIG. And my name is Todd Savitt. I'm in the Department of Bioethics and Interdisciplinary Studies and a historian. I assume everyone has tripped over the attendance sheet as you walked in and signed it. So if you haven't, please make sure you do. And this is the first presentation that is also an ECU passport, wellness passport program. So if you're part of the program, see Marlena, there she is, okay, to sign in. And then afterwards you have to get stamped that you have officially been here. Future presentations, Monday the 26th of September, Dr. Lehman, John Lehman, is going to speak on Paul Ehrlich, his contributions to medical science and therapy. And then a month later on the 24th, these are all Mondays, October 24th, V. Wallace McCarley is going to speak on the development of a dental appliance. He's from the School of Dental Medicine. And then on November 14th, John Lehman again and Bobby Collins from the dental school are going to speak on the history of bioterror. And then today's presentation is Untruth in Advertising, a 19th century patent medicine trade card collection. Everybody knows Melissa Nasea, from the library here, assistant professor at Laupus Library. She's been here for 34 years and has worked in the history collection since 2002. She earned a BA with co-majors in history and art history at Wayne State University in Detroit in 1975, and a Master of Science in Library Science at Wayne State in 1976, and then a Master's of Business Administration at ECU in 1989. She has been a distinguished member of the Academy of Health Information Professionals since 2006. Just one more thing, current exhibits here in the library. On the second floor in the display cabinet downstairs, smallpox early treatment to eradication. And up here on the fourth floor in the display cabinet, Bausch and Lomb microscopes, 1884 to 1972. And then on September 8th at 4 o'clock, that's a Thursday, there'll be a reception for the opening of the exhibit called Vesalius and the Art of the Human Form, and that'll be right here in this room. So here's Melissa, and she's got her title up there, Untruth in Advertising, about trade cards.
Thank you, Todd. Hello, and welcome to Untruth in Advertising, a 19th century patent medicine trade card collection. We're going to talk today about trade cards, patent medicines, and then combine the two topics into patent medicine trade cards. The time period is the late 19th and very early 20th centuries. And I've loved this collection of trade cards since we first purchased them in about 2002. We have also received some donations of cards. So let's start with some definitions. And it's kind of difficult to define ephemera. So I went to the Ephemera Society of America's website, and I found their traditional definition and their modern definition, and you can tell that I added the emphasis about these. So ephemera is generally paper, two-dimensional, transient. Most of the pieces are not expected to be around for a long time, and they're incidental. And trade cards are a type of ephemera. So what are trade cards? Well, the best analogy is to today's baseball cards. And they were common in the 19th century and through early 20th centuries. And here is trade in the sense of commerce. These cards are free, and they're meant as advertising, and they'd often be on a counter at a store. They often have interesting and or colorful pictures, and although some were put in albums, many were discarded over time. So this is one of my favorite cards. And over here, it's almost like an illustration from a nursery rhyme book. It is most definitely not a patent medicine, however, but it was in this original collection of patent medicine trade cards. It's actually a poison that was used to clears out rats, mice, roaches, flies, ants, mosquitoes, bedbugs, insects, skunk, and weasel. I don't know whether it actually did all those things, but it is known to have been used in more than one human murder. So I thought this was a good time to explore our new database, Popular Medicine in America, 1800 to 1900. And I'm going to show you two trade cards from this collection. So the first card is for Colburn's Philadelphia mustard, which undated, but the approximate date is 1870 to 1900. And this is the two sides of the card. And the front of the card looks rather like an owl. Note that it's always reliable for table and medicinal uses. The table use is pretty obvious. The medicinal use is not obvious. However, I would guess that it was used in a mustard plaster, that is a poultice, that is, you take a dressing, we'd say today like a bandage, and you put the mustard seed inside the dressing, you apply it to the skin, and it's used to decrease aches and pains. So just curious, how many people in this group had ever even heard of a mustard plaster before now? Several people, okay. So my guess is that it was used for mustard plaster. I don't really know, okay. This is a trade card for J.M. Jellison, who was a registered druggist, and it's a flag of China. And if you look over here at the sections, this is indicating there are two trade cards for Mr. Jellison. At least I assume it's Mr. And one of these has the flag of China on it, and the other has the flag of Brazil, but I'm not showing you that one. They're colorful, they're educational, and they're advertising a Boston druggist. And if you look at the bottom here, you'll see this, keep this card. Maybe you could develop a collection of current flags and geography lesson. And there's nothing on the back of either card. So drugs and how we refer to them have all changed since the late 19th century. This is the first of two slides. Part of the difference in the two slides is who the drug companies were advertising to. So some companies advertised to doctors. Their drugs were called ethical pharmaceuticals, and they're similar to today's brand name drugs. Some companies from that same period are still around, but often after being combined with other companies. Burroughs Wellcome, for example, is now GlaxoSmithKline. So this is part two. And some drug companies in the late 19th century advertised to patients. They often used drug newspapers and trade cards. Their drugs were called patent medicine, but that's confusing to us today because very few went through the patent process. Proprietary drugs might be a more accurate description, and they're similar to the over-the-counter drugs today. My title of Untruth in Advertising was inspired by the cure-all advertising and the inaccurate and in many cases non-existent ingredient lists of many patent medicines. Changes to laws came slowly, and since these were federal laws, they originally did not affect those drugs that were produced and sold in the same state. The first Pure Food and Drug Act came in 1906, and it had a 1912 amendment. And these were concerned with the accuracy of ingredients in diseases treated. And they required that, okay, here we go, that alcohol, opiates, and things like chloroform must be included in the list of ingredients if they were in the drug. Previously, they weren't, or not necessarily. Even today, Lydia Pinkham and her vegetable compound are relatively well-known patent medicine. At the top of the back is a statement that's quite characteristic of patent medicines. Excuse me. It's a positive cure for all those painful complaints and weaknesses so common to our best female population. And then on the second paragraph, it will dissolve and expel tumors from the uterus. Somehow I doubt it. And this one is stamped by a Massachusetts druggist. So our patent medicine trade cards, they were distributed by druggists, general stores, and perhaps other places. Many have lists of drugs from the same company and/or testimonials. And the pictures, a lot of them are really nice looking pictures. The cards are usually rectangular, but I've seen some cut in shapes, for example, flowers. Dr. D. James Family Medicines is advertised with a historic event, the drafting of the Declaration of Independence. And our collection has other trade cards with pictures of historic events, such as Columbus's ship. And this includes a list of drugs from the same company. Many company names included a doctor's name, but the doctor might or might not be real. So we have over 300 cards, including some duplicates, and ours were mostly distributed in the northeast of the U.S. And just to show you what these things actually look like in person, here are some examples of the front and of the back. And at the end, if you want to come up, you can look at them in more detail. W.H. Comstock of New York has two drugs, 2 pictures, and 3 cards. They're for Dr. Morse's Indian root pills and Comstock's dead shot pellets for worms. And little girls were frequently on the cards. And to put 3 cards on a slide, I had to distort the middle one. They're actually all are the same size. And yes, the one on the right, excuse me, has more color to it. That was an interesting thing I found about them, that even ones that were identical were not always exactly identical. Differences in printing process, probably. So here are the backs of the first and the third cards. Indian root pills were sold in Rhode Island and Tennessee, according to this. And if you look at the third and fourth lines, There are many medicines before the people, and many of them humbugs. True. But then they go on to extol this one. It says, Morse's pills do all that they've claimed for them, thousands of certificates in our files about the wonderful cures. But they never tell us what Indian root pills cure. I still don't know. Or rather, I don't know what they claim to cure. So we got a lot of cards, and the question became, what do you do with them? Well, we chose to alphabetize them by company and then by drug name. And they were part of one of our earliest digitization projects, as they're visually appealing, and we expected them to be used. And indeed, the cards have been viewed, and several people have requested to include them in books to be published. Sometimes you don't realize that there's a problem with the card. If you look at the happy ladies over here, and then you see this little line here. This is a folding line. Kind of comes between the two sets of bracelets here. And in our original card just stopped right there. And then this was the back of it. And now this is the front and back of the second copy we received. If we hadn't received the second copy from a donor, we wouldn't have seen the lady with the spotted face. And if you fold that part over on top of here, you'll see what the lady in the red dress looked like before she took the sarsaparilla. So you can see the difference in length. This one was our original card, and this is the second card, the donated card. And it's hard to see here, but here is the lady with the spotted face. You can see how it bends over, folds over. Merchant's gargling oil, a liniment for man and beast, yellow for animal, and white for human flesh. So this referred to the packaging of the cards. And these are two cure-alls, one for animals and one for humans. And we have another card for this company that has a different horse head inside a horseshoe. It's an ad. The back of the card looks like it was probably pasted somewhere, probably in an album, and it's for an ad for a shoe store. And I don't think they likely sold Merchant's gargling oil there. Right. So this is another card for the same product. It's an exotic location, a desert with palm trees, and there's a printing error to it. If you look here, you can see the color registration is off. That red line should really have been over here. You can see it on the two men with the horse, but you can't really tell that that's the problem over here with the tent. And see, this is the long list, why I called it a cure-all. It's got sprains and corns, burns and scalds. I'm actually not even certain whether this is meant for the horse, the human, or for both. If you look at the collection of diseases listed or conditions listed. I'm going to try to pronounce this Cataveco. It's Dr. Abbey's great specific for skin diseases. And unlike most of them, this was dated 1884. And by the way, the URL at the top here is it's what we used. If you go to that, you'll actually see this card. And it, among other things, it's advertising a book, The Sexual System and Its Derangements, by Dr. E.C. Abbey. That's the second paragraph. And if you look at the fly. All right. Maybe I can't. Oh, there he is. It looks like it's actually sitting on the paper, but it is indeed part of the card. This is a hidden puzzles card, and it's toll gate number 4, called Shoe Fly. We have 2, 3, and 4, and among the hidden pictures there is Our Ladies, Yardstick, Match, alligators, and a lot more. And I've also got, at the front, at the end, I can show you our other puzzles from this series. So this is for Mitchell's rheumatic plasters. If you'll remember the Colburn's Philadelphia mustard and the probable mustard plaster. And there is nothing on the back of this particular card. So this is a variety. It shows some of the variety in cards. It's a modern technology. That is a telephone. It's also a jug, also a joke. Yes, honey, I recognize your dear voice, said to some type of primate. And the product costs 25 cents. So this is a double card with 2 patent medicines from the same company. And I think it's the only double card we have in our collection. Little Girls and the Outdoors are very popular illustrations. Many of the cards have no date, but this is an 1883 calendar. And I'm certain that the patrons of the Ferris General Store in Paris, New York, appreciated having an up-to-date calendar. So I could go on for quite some time, but let's end with something we recognize, Vaseline. And it's from Cheeseboro. Today we say Cheeseboro Ponds, so this is Cheeseboro Manufacturing Company. And the girl and the boy, and at the end of the rope or stick is a turtle. Also, on the back is a poem, and there are poems on some of the other cards, including the one with the, I'm certain we saw it earlier today. So here is a short bibliography. And to see these cards and many more, you can go to the History Collections room in the Health Sciences Building, number 4516, basically is just down the hall. Or you can go to that website. And this is an expansion of a poster session I presented at the 2015 annual meeting of the Medical Library Association. And special thanks to Jason Cottle and Susan Simpson who helped me with that. I've brought all the Laupus cards I talked about, plus several others. Please leave them in the full page plastic page protectors so any fingerprints you leave will be on the plastic, not on the cards. And thank you for coming. Obviously, I could have gone longer. Figured that might would not be appreciated. So, any questions? And oh, well, you can do that. So that we can get the question as well as the answer on the recording, please wait until Todd takes the microphone around to you. Also, if you are here with the wellness passport program, see Marlena Barber in the purple over there. She'll, for the signing of your name or registering of your name, and also then at the end for stamping the other side.
I'm just curious, could you comment as to how this collection got here? Because it seems to be rather eclectic and spurious that we have them.
Okay.
Oh, you've got it.
There's actually is a story about that. Ruth Moskop, PhD, who was the curator of the collection at the time, ordered some books, and one of the books she ordered from a particular company had already been sold, was out of, for whatever reason, she could not get it. I think it was an old book. Then she said, well, we have some, alternatives. So we could buy this French book on some aspect of medicine instead. So we've already paid for whatever the amount was. Or we could buy this collection. And I immediately said, let's buy this collection because it will relate a lot more to our local audience. People in this part of the country in the late 1900s, or late 1800s, early 1900s, might well have had some of these cards in their houses, and I don't think the French medical book was as interesting. So that's how we've got our original collection. We have since been given some donations of others, and I did not bring it out, but I purchased a broadside, so think sort of like newspaper size, that was probably published a little before the trade cards started being interesting. So, and if I had a better budget, I would buy more. But I think they're very I find them fascinating. They're advertising. They're, to some extent, current fashions. They're what people would have, at the time, would have been interested in. Some of them are educational. The signing of the Declaration of Independence, for example. And although I've not gone into that area, they're also interesting from a printing standpoint. They're probably, I think they're chromolithographs, but I'm by no means, I know so little about that area that I'm not going to really talk about what their printing process was. So, yes, they're very interesting. And maybe a little, but in terms of putting them on the website, I think they're one of the nicest things we've got on our website in the digital collections area.
Other questions?
Thank you, Melissa. Do you have any idea how many of these sort of patent drug companies are represented in these cards that you have? Have any idea?
I would say at least 50, maybe more, because we have a box, about this big, with big cards in front of these little cards, and the big cards have the company name and the space and their location. Mm-hmm. In some cases, we couldn't figure out what the company name was, so we have used the drug name. And I would guess at least 50. I haven't counted them lately. We could try to get to the internet and see if we could come up with that, but
Why are you
Yeah.
asking?
Well, no, I'm just interested, you know, all these companies with patent medicines that are cure-alls. And has anyone done any research to figure out what's in these, or what was in these medications?
Well, I mean, I've only scratched the surface on this, but yes, there are books, and I did not bring them out here, but books we can go into more detail. But you could tell from way back. Let's see. There wouldn't have been. Okay, here they are. There wouldn't, 10 ingredients were supposed to be listed in the first in the 1906 Act. They wouldn't have been listed if they hadn't been strong suspicion that they were there. And some of them, for example, they say they'll cure insomnia. You've got a crying baby, you'll put the baby to sleep. Well, if there's enough alcohol or narcotics in the drugs, in the medicine, yeah, it's going to put the baby to sleep, and adults too, pretty quickly.
Were you going to add to that?
I was just curious, and with truth in advertising and all, a lot of these things went by the wayside, but we still have some around today. I remember Carter's liver pills. Always curious what was in that. Does anyone know? I mean, they were still sold in the 1980s. They may still be.
I think we have a card for them, but I do not know what's in them. I really have not gone into that much detail. Looks like.
We have 83 different.
Okay, if you'll, we want to get it on the.
There's actually 83 different companies represented in the patent medicine trade cards, and we do actually have some of the Carter's little liver pills. I don't know what's in them, but there's probably
I suspect
12 of them.
castor oil or something like that.
Can you put your comment on the? Can you repeat your comment, please?
Yeah, I think it probably castor oil was in them. There are books on what's in. I mean, there's a whole long history of patent medicine research. Historians have spent a lot of time doing research on this, and the Food and Drug Administration back in the reason that the 1906 Act happened is because they did those investigations and found what was in them. So it was, yeah, you could find out.
Some of this, well, here are two books that I've used, and there are a number of other books on the topic, some of which we own. And if I go back this way, some of this think of this is a time of Upton Sinclair and the muckrakers, when a lot of things are being debunked. It's a time of a lot of science looking at things, the scientific medicine looking at things. You've got microscopes, you've got analytical tools of various kinds. And so this is a time when a lot of different things were being looked at and said, either they're not good just in general, they're not sanitary, in the case of the medicines, they're not effective, and the attempts to change, to set up laws on this go back into the 1900s, go back into the 1800s. I can't speak with a lot on that, but I agree that this is very interesting, and I have thought almost since when we first got this collection, that it would be interesting for somebody in business, in maybe psychology of advertising, somebody somewhere in the medical sciences to look into these. I've kind of expected that there would be maybe a master's project done on them. Nobody other than me seems to have thought about that idea.
Well, I think at other places, these have been used as source material for the exact things that you're talking about.
So this is kind of an introduction. This is meant as an introduction to the field. And I started with definitions because patent medicine trade card, what does that mean to people? Well, most people, not much. So, and the other thing is I wanted to focus on some of our cards, look at some of the things there. I could have done a lot more. There are 83 companies. We could look at some of those companies. And I'm not certain whether whether the 83, does that 83, do you know if it includes those where we just had a drug name? Ashley is going to look into that. So you are welcome to come and look at them.
I believe some of them are just the name of the medicine. Downey's Magical Pain Extractor.
Okay.
I saw you raise your hand. Were you?
Joe?
Sorry.
I was just going to comment that nowadays, if somebody would advertise something that said it cures everything, you would think that was a rather dubious claim. So I was wondering if anybody did any research to find out why these things were so effective in those days. Is it because people knew so little about medicine, or?
If they were effective, and I have to assume that some people thought so, or they wouldn't have been continuing to be manufactured. Maybe it's placebo effect.
Can't overlook the placebo effect.
The other thing would be some things, if you will run their course, after 2-3 weeks, it's out of your system. Some things, if you just relax a little bit about it and get some good rest, they may be less of a problem. And this is a time when there were all kinds of medical schools. So I don't know exactly. Another question.
I don't need to be recorded, but I was just thinking, you have to consider the rurality of the United States, the people who weren't very sophisticated about things. And even today, you get a spokesperson who's a Hollywood actor or actress, and they'll say, you need to oil pull, and you can get rid of carious lesions and sores and all this stuff, cure syphilis. But people will believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dr. Oz advertises it, and people believe it, and it's not necessarily true.
So I'm just going to summarize that for the tape and say that some people are not very sophisticated, and say that even though some people who are, if you are suffering from something, you want it ended, and that in itself may be a reason to go buy something or go to a particular doctor.
Another reason would be that, as Melissa pointed out, these medicines often had a fairly high alcohol content or opioid content, and that was unregulated in the 19th century. Regulation of those didn't take place until the 20th century. So it made you feel better just because of that. But yeah, there weren't many active ingredients, I don't think.
There's also, of course, the possibility that in whatever ingredients were included, maybe there was some herb that actually did help the particular problem you had. But we've had somebody from the music library here and has presented, and I can't think of the company's name. It would have been considered something like a patent medicine, and apparently it actually had some good effects on people. So I'm having to talk very broadly. My knowledge is, not very deep, but I wanted to emphasize, talk about this collection, and maybe somebody will go investigate it in more detail than I've had time to do so.
Thanks a lot, Melissa, and come on up and look at the cards.